Hello again. All right, let's go over passage 1 and 2 from the reading section. We haven't seen one of these before. Actually, before I go over the answers, I want to point out some things that you need to know as you approach these and as you sit down for your ACT test. They're looking for specific kinds of they're asking specific kinds of questions, and there are clues within the question of what sort of material you want to look for to answer the question. So really figuring out the ACT reading part is more about knowing what kind of questions are going to be answered and doing a lot of reading. So practicing a lot of reading is the best way to get good at this. Otherwise, there aren't a whole lot of techniques for pointing out and for learning that's going to improve your score all that much. But there are a couple of things. All right, so looking at the front page, this is passage 1. And this is prose fiction, so knowing what you're reading is important. Prose fiction is fiction that's not written as poetry or verse. That's what prose means. So if you read a novel, you're probably reading prose fiction, though I know there's some weird formatted novels right there that look like they might be something other than prose fiction. They could be verse. You're not going to get that in the ACT. It's going to be a regular novel or passage from a short story or something like that. Okay, look at these questions. There are some words that I want to point out. Number 1, number 2, the word inferred shows up in number 2. The word inferred shows up in 2, in number 3, in number 5. Flip the page over. In number 7. Okay, so it would be smart to know what that word means since it shows up so often. When you infer something, you are drawing a conclusion about something based on facts, but it's not going to, you're reading between the lines. It's not going to be something that's presented explicitly to you. It's implied within the text. Something is being implied. You are inferring that out of the text. You're figuring it out. We want to oppose that with other kinds of words, such as, flip over to passage 2, and we see words like number 1 says one of the author's main points. Number 5 says indicates. Number 6 says states. Number 7, according to the passage. Number 8 says suggests. Now that might be on the fence. Not really sure if that means something explicit or implicit. And then number 9, according to the passage. So for those kinds of things, you're going to want to be pointed directly to the passage and to specific parts, specific words that help you answer the question. It's not a matter of reading between the lines or figuring it out. It's a matter of reading explicitly what's happening. I just noticed number 4 in passage 2 has the word implies in it, which is kind of like inferred. When we go over our usage issues, I think that's on the next class set, which would be number 6. Imply and infer are two words that are often confused because they're similar. When you imply something, you state something not explicitly, not word for word, but somebody kind of hears what you mean, you're implying something. When they hear what you mean, what they are doing, the listener's doing, is they are inferring from your words what you mean. So it's more of a directional thing. Okay, so those are some terms that we need to know before we go into this, and that helps us to look for what kind of answer they're after in that particular question. Okay, so let's just work through these. Starting with number 1 on passage 1. So back up if you need to. Passage 1. The point of view from which the passage is told can best be described as C. An unidentified narrator describing a man who devoted his life to neighborhood children years after his own difficult childhood. So we never know, or we don't hear Clifford or Abshu, as he's preferred to be known in the streets, telling his own story. Right? This is somebody else telling it, but the someone else who's telling it does not draw attention to him or herself, doesn't give himself a name. It's not an I, a first-person type narration. So the point of view is an unidentified narrator. Okay. Number 2. It can be reasonably inferred from the passage that which of the following is a cherished dream that Abshu expects to make a reality in his lifetime. J. Expanding for some, if not all, of the children the vision they have of themselves and their futures. Okay, so do you see how J is a good example of an inference? Like the passage does not have those exact words anywhere in it. We have to figure that out after reading the passage. Okay, that's what inferring is. So that's the kind of answer that they're looking for here. Okay. Number 3, it can be reasonably inferred from the passage that Abshu and the Masons would agree with which of the following statements about the best way to raise a child. That's C. For a child to thrive and be a responsible member of society, he or she must develop a sense of discipline. Number 4, the 4th paragraph, those lines establishes all of the following except, okay, now we're looking for specifics. The thing that it does not establish is J. What Abshu remembered most about his years with the Masons. It's not mentioned. Number 5, it can reasonably be inferred that which of the following characters from the passage lives according to Abshu's definition of a life fully lived. And the answer is Abshu as an adult. Number 6, which of the following statements about the children entering the community center is supported by the passage? And that can mean a couple of different things, right? It could be explicit, could just be several facts that together are support. Number 6 is G. In Abshu's eyes, they were all gifted. In this case, it turns out it is explicit because I think the term gifted is mentioned at the very beginning. Young, gifted, and black. Number 7, sorry, I jumped ahead, gave the answer, is A. It can reasonably be inferred from the first paragraph that in obtaining outside funding for the community center, Abshu could be characterized as thorough in seeking out potential sources for financial backing. Okay, you said figure that out, and that was inferred by language in the first paragraph. Number 8, which of the following explicit statements, sorry, I put the word explicit in there, I wrote it in, but these are statements. Statements are going to be explicit. About Abshu's attitude toward his mother's choices early in life is supported by the passage. And the answer is H. Abshu wonders if she might have made a better decision about letting him and his siblings go into foster care, even though he understands why she did it. Okay, he basically says that, not word for word, but that is what he says. Number 9, as it is used in line 65, the term the edge refers to a place where Abshu felt. Now this one you got to be careful of. Let's read it. Existing that way all the time, on the edge of hunger, on the edge of kindness, gave Abshu an appreciation for a life fully lived. Okay, so the answer here is A. He felt most alive when he was on the edge. Even though on the edge doesn't sound like a good thing, what he's telling us is he felt most alive when he was there. Number 10, according to the passage, which of the following most closely identifies Abshu's definition of a life fully lived? And our answer is F. Happiness in your work and love in your house. And if you look back on line 66, 67, do whatever job makes you happy, regardless of the cost, and fill your home with love. There you go. Okay, let's move over to passage 2. Social science passage. So this is going to be a completely different kind of writing. It's often very scholarly, so the style is going to be different. The sentence structure is going to be different. Don't see any dialogue or anything in here. That's typical. So you have to change gears. So when I talked about reading a lot of things to get ready for this part of the test, it's important that you read a lot of different kinds of things. Read articles, read short stories, read poems, read technical journals, whatever, any kind of English language where you're shifting gears often and have to think in different ways is going to be helpful. Okay, number 1, one of the author's main points, so we're looking for something probably fairly explicit here, about the legal concept of responsibility in the passage is that B, responsibility and guilt are legal concepts and their meanings can be modified. Number 2, based on the passage, the primary purpose for the 1970s redefinition of insanity proposed by the American Law Institute was to G, more precisely define the concepts of responsibility and intellectual capacity. This is a higher level piece of reading here than you're going to find in your prose fiction piece, at least in most of the cases. There are some very difficult prose fiction, but they tend to not involve quite such complex sentence structures. And oftentimes this is the hardest out of the 4 readings. Number 3, from information in the 3rd and 4th paragraphs, lines 35 to 58, it can reasonably be inferred that the legal definition of insanity was changed in the 1970s after D. Several courts found that justice was not always best served when the M'Naghten rule was applied. Number 4, according to the explanation provided in the 4th paragraph, the use of the word appreciate in the phrase to appreciate the wrongfulness instead of know implies which of the following? Answer is H. The word appreciate suggests that an action and that action's implications must be understood for there to be legal responsibility. Number 5, the passage indicates that the M'Naghten case became the basis for future decisions about legal insanity because A, the House of Lords upheld the verdict of the court despite considerable political pressure. Number 6, the passage states that M'Naghten wanted to kill the English Prime Minister because the Scotsman thought that he, J, had been wronged by the minister. Number 7, according to the passage, one of the reasons some mental health and legal groups want to abolish the insanity defense is that B, juries that must sort out conflicting testimony become confused and justice suffers. Number 8, the passage suggests that individuals who use the insanity defense, J, might risk a lifelong confinement even if acquitted by a jury if the acquittal is based on insanity. Number 9, according to the passage, a lawyer contemplating using insanity as a defense for a client should do which of the following? A, carefully evaluate using the defense since in actual practice it rarely works. That's a good summarizing line for the whole article as well. Number 10, one of the main points made in the last paragraph is that insanity pleas were unconvincing to most juries in California in 1980. Got to be a quick reader to get these done because there's a lot of words. I mean, not just the passage itself, but the choices that you have, the multiple choice pieces tend to be very long. And so this does require some practice, some getting good at reading quickly. Okay. Later we'll talk about strategies of how to actually read through the ACT reading passages. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you soon.